Let's go! Kelvin Banks picks Oregon over LSU and a host of other schools, a five-star offensive lineman. Look, first thing right off the bat, yes, he didn't pick LSU. At least it's a good thing that he is not going to another SEC or SEC West school. So this obviously is best case scenario if Kelvin Banks were to not choose LSU. So he's going to a Pac-12 school. Is Oregon a college football playoff level program anytime soon? I don't know. So we're not playing Oregon in the foreseeable future, and Kelvin Banks is not going to be in the West, the SEC West. So this is obviously a win, a minor win for LSU in that aspect. A little bit later, I'm going to tell you why I think we will see a wave of decommitments throughout college football. I'm not just saying this because obviously we all want Kelvin Banks to go to LSU. I really do believe this, and I think that includes LSU players right now because there's so much that is changing. But for right now, let's discuss if LSU could have done anything more as far as getting Kelvin Banks to Baton Rouge. As Kelvin Banks said, LSU exceeded his expectations. We've shared these photos plenty of times of Banks having a good time on his LSU visit. It's just really hard getting out-of-state five-star offensive linemen. LSU last season with Tristan Lee, and that list goes on, which kind of stinks because Alabama every season gets the elite five-star offensive lineman from out-of-state. So we've shared this plenty of time on live streams, and what I'm about to say is not a knock on LSU offensive lines of the past because they've had plenty of good offensive lines. The simple truth is this is the only position where our brand is not elite right now. It's legit the only one. Obviously, LSU's offensive line class, we'll touch on it in just a second, is fine right now with Will Campbell and Bo Bordelon, but it does need to get better. So, yeah, I mean, you can always do more. The bottom line, though, is this is the position. This is it. Everywhere else, we're pretty daggum good. Yeah, after this Kelvin Banks announcement, let's take a look at LSU's offensive line recruiting moving forward. I still think they want to get to 6 commitments minimum in this class, and we'll get to Emery Jones in a second. But first, Fitzgerald West actually made an announcement today, a 3-star defensive tackle who LSU is recruiting as an offensive lineman, and his final 4 listed today was Alabama, LSU, SMU, and Tulane, which is a very interesting group of 4 schools right here. Now, the first thing is I love the big man mid-drift. I remember the Senior Bowl guy that did the same thing, and I used to do the same thing. Show that belly! Anyway, obviously Fitzgerald West is really talented. He is more of an athlete than a defensive lineman or an offensive lineman because he does play both ways. Plays at Lafayette Christian Academy, and obviously Sage Ryan, that's where he went. That's where Jordan Allen is right now. So a school that's produced some really good players in recent years. And this is going to come down to his personal preference. I'm not so sure if Alabama wants him as a defensive tackle either. But he does give you a lot of value as an athletic center or guard type of player. And his commitment is coming up on July 10th. So a few days from now. Now, he's not the biggest in-state target. That is Emery Jones. And look, no matter what happened today with Kelvin Banks, Emery Jones is still LSU's number 1 uncommitted prospect. Catholic High in Baton Rouge. You don't want these other schools that already out-recruit you on the offensive line to start making inroads with the few elite offensive line prospects that Louisiana produces. And we've covered this quite a few times. Louisiana produces great athletes everywhere except the offensive line. Obviously, they produce some. Will Campbell in this class, and you can go back to Will Clapp, Garrett Brumfield, Lyle Collins, whoever you want to mention, but they just don't produce the same way that they do at other skill positions. And I've shared this before. My guy, Connor McAnalytics, shared a graph that of the rated prospects, only Florida has a higher rate of as a higher percentage of skill position players rated by 247. So in other words, Louisiana and Florida are 2 states that don't produce a lot of offensive linemen compared to other prospects that they produce. I'm not going to spend too much time on Emery Jones. The only bit of news we have is that he did say he is going to commit before his senior season. He's already pushed back his commitment date. Now, obviously, LSU did a good job picking up Garrett Dellinger and Kimo McAnioli in this last class. I think Dellinger for sure is going to be a hit. We'll see where Kimo is in a year from now. I doubt he's a true freshman starter. And then, of course, you have some more youth there from out-of-state guys like Xavier Hill, Marlon Martinez, Charles Turner, and that list goes on and on. Still, the depth needs to be replenished, and LSU really needs to hit on a few of these out-of-state offensive linemen. Not looking too good for the elite 5 stars, whether it's Zach Rice or Devon Campbell, whoever you want to mention. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 names to keep an eye out for. The first is actually an offensive lineman for the state of Florida, Julian Armella. So like Louisiana, Florida doesn't produce linemen the same way that they produce skill position guys. And still, Florida produces some pretty good offensive linemen. LSU was able to get Marcus Dumerville a few years ago from St. Thomas Aquinas. Julian Armella is from the same high school here. And LSU's done a pretty good job as far as his recruitment is concerned. So Armella is definitely the big name to keep an eye out for. The next one is, I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. I'm just going to say Neto. And he is a really talented guard prospect out of the state of Texas. You look at the state of Texas, a lot of great LSU offensive linemen over the years have come from that state, whether it's Simon Black, whether it's Ed Ingram, whether it's Austin Deculus in recent seasons, Toby Weathersby, whoever you want to mention. So yeah, Texas has been a really good state for LSU when it comes to offensive linemen, and they hope to continue that trend. And then the last name, Malik Agbo. This has kind of cooled off just a little bit, but you never know. LSU has ties. He's all the way up in Washington. I don't think that will be a hindrance on LSU's recruiting because, once again, they just got Garrett Dellinger from Michigan. So LSU's got a national brand, a national blueprint, and some potential immediate playing time for a true freshman. So I think those are the 3 names you got to keep an eye out for. Of course, there's some sleepers out there. 2 sleepers here are the 2 Arkansas commits that Brad Davis got at Arkansas. Both are 4 stars. We'll see what happens there. I think, first off, it depends if LSU wants them. And the second thing is it's going to be hard to get 4 stars out of the state of Arkansas. So, we'll see. Once again, I think the last great LSU player from the state of Arkansas was Brett Helms, who is a really underrated center at LSU. So, yeah, we'll see what happens there. This is one major point that I'm going to make for today's video, and I think this applies in particular to Kelvin Banks and pretty much any other recruit who's committed now. We are going to see more decommitments now more than ever over this next year or so. And there are a lot of reasons why. Remember, we don't know what's going to happen to college football with the name, image, and likeness. So the first thing is that's obviously a new wave. And without a doubt, there's going to be agencies and sponsors that are going to try and get in with high school recruits before they even get to college. And that's obviously going to sway a lot of decision making. And players are going to look to see which players earn the most money. That's going to be a major factor when it comes to some of these kids' recruiting decisions. So how much of an impact is that going to be? We don't know, but we do know that aspect is new to this entire process. Remember, we are just in the infancy of NIL. We have no idea how money is going to flow a month from now, whenever the new wears off, and we'll see what happens there. The second thing is obviously the transfer portal is going to change a lot. So, if players in general are just going to be more mobile from this point forward. So with the transfer portal, that's going to change a lot of the ways rosters look. I think we will still see more prospects continue to enter the transfer portal during the season, and that could obviously have a huge sway on how depth charts work. We see a lot of coaches and analysts go from school to school, and we see a lot of players attached to these coaches and analysts, and they'll follow them to wherever they go. So now that the transfer portal is going to be more mobile, this is the first time, once again, with the NIL and the transfer portal being the way that it is now, this is the first time that these things are going to be in place. But to me, the last and the most important thing as to why we're going to see more decommitments in stadium visits. Kids love making visits. It's the bottom line. There's nothing better than getting red carpet treatment from these multi-million-dollar facilities. You know, you're the superstar on campus. You have the student sections yelling, "Come here." There's nothing that replaces that for a recruit. That dopamine hit, it is unreal. Also, another reason why you'll see more decommitments is exactly what Kelvin Banks tweeted the day before his announcement. He said, "Hey, can you guys get me to 5,000 followers?" Well, look, you get more attention when you commit, and when you decommit, and then when you commit again. It's the bottom line, because the anticipation, the mystery behind it is what really drives recruiting coverage. It's what really drives recruiting clicks. And as you remain decommitted, the more interest begins to pile up towards you. And Kelvin Banks has been getting these Twitter follows from fans that are desperately wanting him. Guess what? When you commit, that same interest still isn't the same. And whenever you decommit and recommit, that whole buzz factor starts back up. And remember, advertisers want to see your follower count. They're going to evaluate all those things. So yeah, I think with that, recruits are going to start realizing that could be attached to a potential monetary value. So, it's very interesting how this works now. In-person visits, all those different things. I believe we're going to see a wave of decommitments. I really do. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you're having an awesome 4th of July. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! I think we're doing chicken wings tonight. Let's go!